Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I'm your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is the show that we talk about the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. All right, today's show is going to be a little interesting. I'm not fully talking about previews per se, but talking about previews per se. So what I mean is I'm not talking about specifically the gems and Black Panther because we know Black Panther is awesome and everything else. I'm more just talking about the implication of the gems and the rarity schema and some other things. And like always, if we have a little extra time, we're going to get into some man from Japan questions. All right, so you might be thinking like Dark Logos. Why are you talking about these items? We know these items are good. We know Wiz Kids got our wallet on a freaking, string with a straw in it. And sometimes they just reach their hands into our wallets and straight take money from us. I get that, man. I feel your pain. I feel it 5 ways to Sunday. Okay. Uh, but I want to look at the grand design of what WizKids is doing and why they're doing it. So let's start at my my InfoWars level conspiracy theory, my Alex Jones level conspiracy theory of what's going on. You know, so let's start at the beginning. The beginning technically is when they decided to make Space Leo. Now, I know most of you be like, what? It goes back that far? And I'm like, actually, yes. So they wanted to test the water. They wanted to see, hey, what would happen if we made like an anti-object guy? And so they took our advice and they made it so that resources and objects weren't exclusive. But when all said and done, once we got down to the end, all you had was Round Table. And even still, Round Table plus Mjolnir does not equal broken. And if you go back to, my the Mighty Thor review, I actually think it was a good thing that we had the introduction of objects, that objects were going to be the future instead of resources. It allowed for the game to be diverse. It allowed for a lot of options to still exist, but you're not forced down the road of having to use items. Okay, so it's been a little while since I've had that viewpoint. A little bit while since I've recorded that episode, and since then they've increased the amount of anti-object characters into the game. Not by much, but in particular, their grand resolve was, look, Sheriff Strange is going to make it so that we can shut down objects for a period. We also have what's her name? Not Black Cat, Catwoman. And so we have some stuff that can start messing with things. Add in Collector, and I think Collector is the other figure in which they just said, you know what, if you can't beat them, join them. Or better yet, just straight jack with them. And even before that, you can make the argument for Ajax. And Ajax is a very underestimated character in the meta. And I think right now that Ajax has the potential, not necessarily to be the most devastating character, but be one of the most controlling characters out there in the game. Bar none. Now I know most of you are saying like, Dark Logos, he's on that stuff again. He's spouting them lies. But I mean, really, sort of take some time to think about it. Like, and let's look up Ajax, because I know some people are like, yo, what's going on? What's going on? Yeah, you could tell. When I don't get enough sleep, I start singing on the show. And I'm on like 6 hours sleep, broken up into 3-hour power naps. So, yeah. Like it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. All right, where's Ajax? Hold on, Ajax. Nope. What is his name? He's eternal. All right, so Ajax with the K. All right, Ajax with the K. All right. So he's 110 points. So he's already popping us off in the wrong direction. He's hella expensive. Okay, but he has the discipline of uncovered history. When placing objects during game setup, if you did not choose the map, you may place your opponent's objects. Well, guess where I'm placing your objects? And guess what most likely is going to be right there. So you might be thinking to yourself, hey, Kool-Aid, what walls are you going to break through with Ajax? This chump is 110 points. And it's real simple. And I'm going to ask you a solid question. How good is Vulture without Doc Ock arms? He's not bad, but he ain't that scary. How good is, let's say Cosmic Panther without Exospecs or without Symbiote? He ain't as scary. He's not that scary, He's threatening, but he's not as scary. So we are actually starting to realize that we've been having the tools to deal with our problems, but we haven't been desperate enough to deal with our problems that way, or better yet, open-minded enough to deal with our problems that way. Now, again, during the Mighty Thor, we needed a situation where objects would be saturated, and we weren't really at an object saturated point because most of the objects were cool, quote unquote, but they weren't mandatory. You're bound to, say like, oh, hey, Mjolnir is great, but every team wasn't rocking Mjolnir. You could say Thunderstrike was great, but every team wasn't rocking Thunderstrike. You could say Stormbreaker was great, but every team wasn't rocking Stormbreaker. So what ends up happening is that WizKids reintroduce, rebirth, if you will, objects into our mindscape. And we're like, this isn't bad. The resources of the Punisher van sucks baloney right now. So let me just sort of look at this. Okay, this is all right. This is good. Can I set up shop like 2 doors down? Is that okay? That's what we were doing in our meta brains at that time. All right, now we're like, this is a hustling, bustling metropolis of objects. They're everywhere. You look, you see a new one, you're like, oh my gosh, it's like a player in the club who also looks good. Okay, you get one chick, another hot chick walks by, you're like, oh, baby, did you catch me looking at the other chick? Nah, her dress is, she's a hoe. Check, oh, that dress, oh. I'm glad that your skirt is 3, millimeters longer than that other chick. And then you go and leave that one and you go talk to the one that just passed by. I'm not talking from experience. Yeah. Anyway, going on. So now we look at some other older characters. The shiny is worn off. It doesn't necessarily have the rust on it, but that new car smell is faded. And we're looking at some older figures, and you're just like, man, I'm not feeling you, because at 110 points or 80 points or 90 points or 75 points, there's new poppin' fresh shiny things out there, and I want to play poppin' fresh shiny. Okay, and I can't hate on poppin' fresh shiny. All right, I've been pro poppin' fresh shiny, but I can't get distracted by the keys jingling. I'm not a 2-month-old baby. So now we have our current format, or current. We have our current format, and I'm seeing the complaints. all over the place. Folks are like, man, these objects, WizKids is so expensive. Man, these objects are OP. Like Vulture objects, this, that objects. Can we nerf objects? Objects are a problem. And I'm going to tell you, this 100% straight up honest, Eddie Murphy Raw style. The problem isn't the objects. The problem is the players. The problem isn't the object. The problem is the players. Now, I want to make sure it's straight when I say this. The biggest problem is people not expanding their depth of figures and then saying to the options that are there that solve the problem, I don't like those options and I don't like those solutions because I can't do it my way. That's not a legitimate argument. Okay, if you say, oh my gosh, this thing is so dominating, there's nothing that stops it. And then you're like, well, there's these 3 options that you could do, but I can't play my Unimind. I can't play my X-Men. I can't play my I can't play my X Factor. I can't play my Justice League. Like no. So the issue isn't that there aren't any options. The issue is that the options are not on the flavor of figures that you want to have the options. And so that's really what we're dealing with. You want most people want situations where full on that the situation is so one-sided it's not fun. That's what most people want. And because of that, it allows people to block themselves off from the easy, accessible figures. Now, one could say, hey, Dark Logos, I'm really not feeling Ajax. What else can I do? And I'm like, well, you could also accept with what WizKids is doing, they're trying to make more teams equal than having there being a lot of outliers. Now, hear me out when I say this. I said a lot of outliers. Not there won't be any outliers, but a lot of outliers, at least in the next 2 years' term. Now, why do I say this? Let's look at what we got recently. Okay, so for those who are with me, feel free to check out Clickstuff, or it was actually posted on Eternal Games, and Clickstuff posted it on their Facebook. So that's why there's not a watermark on there. But Eternal Games posted, check this out. Here's the time gem. Modify range by +1. Well, that sounds pretty good. Probability control. Okay. That's just flat probability control. When this character attacks, the character's roll is 10 or higher. Opposing characters can't use effects to reroll attacks this turn. Okay. So you didn't even have to hit. You just didn't have to hit. Like, as long as you roll the 10, you were just like, guess what, homie? You can't prob this. Okay. And the character you target can't prob it. And that's the thing to keep in mind. Now, how many theme teams have you played that did not have a standard prob? I could think of a bunch. As an Avengers player, my teammates kept slapping my hand every time I said Brother Voodoo. I mean Dr. Voodoo for 40 points. They were like, no, Edward, bad Edward. No, stop reaching for Dr. Voodoo. We know he's black. You can't play him. He's not good for your team. They slapped my hand, okay? And for me, who was raised in the stop mechanics, Brother Voodoo was like the obvious answer. I didn't like theme props. I didn't like tokening down my guys. Okay, but guess what? I did it. I did it. All right. And so there's a problem that emerges. Okay. And that problem is this. And it's a real clear problem. If I have the points to play with and I'm making my theme team, or I'm making my comic accurate theme team, and there is no prob, how do I alleviate that? Well, I don't want to token count down all my guys because my team isn't that stout or it's not that deep in the number of members for the point values. Boom, time gem. Now one of my range guy has prob, or one of my supporting characters has prob. Boom, there we go. If we get a gem that gives perplex or TK or outwit, I think we actually do get something that gives outwit, maybe. I don't know. Any of those things that teams need that won't break the bank, you can just get and slap on there. And now you can play that theme team, which, in my opinion, what it does is it opens up the field for you to play however you want to play. You just have to mind the tempo to be able to, for lack of a better word, not get bogged down with your stuff, not get bogged down with your objects, not get caught up in materialism. So what's going on with objects is actually really good. Do you have a bruiser? Do you wish he could do charge flurry? There you go. He got charge flurry now. Okay. Do you have a character that has good stats, but really doesn't have much in the attack or damage power? Here's exospecs. Do you have somebody that has a nice range and improved targeting, but they lack in some mobility? Boom. Here's the goblin glider. Do you need to try to you have a melee character with decent range and stuck with charge? Bam, here's Monir. Okay, there are tons of options out there for us to utilize and diversify our characters and make it specifically so these effects are not A, redundant, and B, not as abusive. So let's sort of go into why I say that. Again, this is the old man get off my lawn moment of today's show. Back in my day, during feats, the biggest problems that you could put a feat on every character on your team. And then they had to introduce the point limit that up to 10% of your build could be feats. And that ended up making it real hard sometimes to play teams. But what was real annoying is that you have a guy with 3 protecteds on his team, and then you try to kill his team, and they keep using protected. That actually was a thing. Okay, so rewinding back, coming back to the present. What was the problem with feats in the past? You could have a multitude of feats, and they all are the same feat on all your guys. Okay, because there was nothing that stopped that from happening. What are objects right now? Objects are feats. Let's not try to dance around the bush. Let's not try to do a little rain dance and bring down some nice, dewy rain. No, let's be honest. Let's keep it 100. Objects are feats, and we are just accepting it. Objects are feats. All right. And because objects are acting like feats and they are restricted feats, we are able to swallow that pill better. And for the new cats, you never knew that's what you were playing with. With the old cats, we got blinded by the fact, okay? We got blinded by the facts. We like, oh, they do all these things. And it's like, but it's just like the old thing. Except it's new. They just sold us the old thing in a different package. That's exactly what they did. Okay. Now I know some of you are like, we don't have full-on wacky stuff like the old feats, you know, and there's limitations on this thing and the other thing, Edward. Full, whatever. Cool. But you could say that, but functionally we're dealing with the same similar situation. Okay. So, you could say when we're looking at the reality of our current object limitation, quote unquote, instead of being limited to 30 points like we were with feats in 300 point modern, we're limited to 3 objects. It's almost exactly the same thing. It's pretty much almost exactly the same thing. So, I know some people will say, well, man, I'm not really liking the idea of chase objects. And truth be told, I'm with you. I don't like the idea of chase objects. But since we know that objects are not bound to characters, they've added value into the boosters again. There's a reason to blind buy. Okay? Because there's enough objects and stuff in this set where if you're serious about being competitive and playing, you might be saying to yourself, I'm going to need that. I see myself playing this. I see myself playing that. I think there's a place in the game for this thing or the other thing. Okay, so there's a lot of utility in all these objects, and since they're not attached to figures and they're just bound by rarity, and you're probably going to get like 3 objects in a not a booster, 3 objects in a brick, and if they're nice, they'll give us 4. I don't see them going over to 5. I think that's them from their perspective. They're being over generous as they go into 5. But I think if they gave us 4 objects per per brick, I think that would be a good deal. That would definitely be a good buy. And they need to tell us up front what is the perceived rarity of the objects before Scott Porter pops off. Because sometimes, man, Scott Porter, that brother gets a magic brick. He just does. He pulls like all the most wonderful things that you would love to see previewed. And it's like they say, like, hold on, wait. Is that the Scott Porter brick? Okay. They look at is a conglomeration, not conglomeration. I forgot the word for it. It's not congregate. Daggone it, what's the word for it? Anyway, and they just say like, all right, it has these 3 super rares that we want everybody to know about. We're going to send that in the Scott Porter brick, and then it's sort of like the Dave Chappelle show where they talk about it's the skit where he's like the police officers just sprinkle crack on him. Like instead of sprinkle crack, it's like sprinkle a chase on it, and then they send it out. And then Scott Porter like opens it up, and he's like, "Oh my gosh! I'm a comic book geek fan, and there's things that I really want as a geek that aren't in this set, but I'm going to sell this because I'm a professional, and I sell it well because I'm a professional." And then he'll pull some magic rainbow unicorn flying through the sky stuff, and you're just like, man, I haven't seen a case like that in years, man. Scott Porter, they must love you over at WizKids. So anyway, as I digress and I'm coming back down, if they were giving us 4 in a case, I'm in a brick, 4 objects in a brick, I get my units of measurement all messed up, then I think it's good. I think it definitely would be good. I think it's going to be 3, which means the secondary market for most of these objects, the starting price is going to be $10 to $15 for the object itself. Which means that overall, getting a majority of these objects, trying to collect them all, like your Ash Ketchum, you're going to be spending $150 to almost $200. So you might as well buy. Like that's the problem that I'm having with this set is the cost just for the objects, not let alone the figures, for you to get what you need. I see that running you on the low end, if you're lucky with pulls, counting in the cost of your pulls, and you're getting all the objects that you want, and let's just say that's 5 objects. I'm looking at the low end of that being $120. And I'm not just talking about like for the first couple of weeks. I'm pretty much thinking that's just how this is. Because functionally, this is literally Hammer of Thor. Not Hammer of Thor, the Mighty Thor all over again. This is the Mighty Thor all over again. Okay, when I look at the power of the characters, the versatility, just some of the usefulness, yeah, this is the Mighty Thor all over again. So I don't see anybody letting these objects slip unless they're trolling Toad and they don't know what the hell they're doing for cheap. At least not until it retires. The other element that I see that is going on that creates a problem is that if, Future Billy, and I brought this up during the EarthX thing, during EarthX with the Fast Forces. Future Billy comes in and he's like, you know what? Avengers Endgame made me feel all tingly inside. And he goes back into the comic book store that he had never been in for 8 years. And he's like, and he comes in and he sees your group. Yes, your group. Listener. The magical, wonderful nature that is your group. With Aslan and the never-ending story dragon floating through, welcoming everyone in to play heroclix. Aslan's my boy. I love me some Aslan. Anyway, so going on. He comes in 8 months from today. He's like, I want to play the heroclix again. I want to, I see y'all playing. You got freaking the never-ending story dragon, Aslan's purring, in the corner, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna play. And then he sits down and he buys some stuff and he goes and plays and he's like, how did you get a magical Infinity Gauntlet gem? What set did that come out in? And we're going to be like, the most convoluted name, because they were afraid to sell this set on Black Panther's name alone, considering it was one of the highest grossing movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and almost of all time. So that part is beyond me. You can float freaking Thor by himself, Cap by himself, Iron Man by himself, Superman and freaking Spider-Man by himself. Nah, man, we get to Black Panther, nobody knows that guy. Nobody knows that guy. We need to put Avengers before this. It's like before it was Black Panther and Illuminati, like it was a good 70s band. Now it's all confusing. It's like Avengers, Black Panther, and the Illuminati. Like you have to bring in the freaking publishing house in. It's like Record House Music presents Black Panther and the Illuminati. Come on, WizKids. I'm not even going to say it's racist. I don't think it's really good marketing when your name is along the lines of, A Tribe Called Quest. But when the name of your title of your set is a compound sentence almost, you probably should think about it. Think about it just a bit. Just a tiny bit. I mean, when I got little kids walking up to me saying Wakanda forever when I wear my talons, I think you can float it on Black Panther's name alone. Okay? Again, I'm not calling y'all racist. I just think you need to talk to the marketing department on this one, okay? All right. So, anyway, the guy comes in and he plays, and he's noticing, he's playing his Avengers team. He's got his Cap, he's got his Black Widow, he's got his Thor that he got from Secret Wars or whatever. He's got a couple little objects that he spent a little of his coin on. And he's wondering, like, why do you get to have probability control for 10 points? And he's got to token his guys up for probability control. What's going on? It's going to be a problem. It's going to be a straight problem. All right. So, in the long run, I see this as an issue, and I really hope that they have printed a crap ton of this set. Because if they haven't, WizKids is setting themselves up that in a year from now, there is going to be such a high bar to get into competitive play that is almost insurmountable. It's going to be almost insurmountable. Okay, and I'm just saying this like realistically. Let's just say there's some character and it combos really well with a super rare object or a chase level object. Excuse me. And it's just dominating. So you're going to tell somebody, you know how you solve that? Sheriff Strange. And you're like, hold up, what? And you tell that guy, he's going to be like, what? Like, Sheriff Strange, really? So you're telling me that I'm going to have to buy a chase figure, pimp out a team for him, pick a map for him, be a better theme than this other team is, or better play with the objects, or I'm freaking playing Ajax or something equivalent, so that I can beat him. So I am investing over $300, at least let's just say realistically, for a high gear meta team to compete on a national level, you're at least spending $300. On the local level, you're probably spending $200. Like, just accumulatively with all the stuff that you would need to sort of take on this escapade. If they come from Magic, they're going to be like, all right, that's sort of reasonable and it's cheaper and I can use these figures a little bit longer. If they are I'm new to hobby collectible games, they're going to say, take that plastic crack and shove it. That's what they're going to do. And they're going to quit. And then they're going to say the game is pay to win, which is a problem that I have with this setup, because we are moving towards a pay to win and win big culture. Because the diversity of options that you need to have on deck, if you're going to be a competitive player, is way more higher than it's ever been before. And you can say, like, well, Dark Logos, man, go back, listen to some of your older videos during, the time of the Infinity Gauntlet, or go listen to your videos during the time of War of Light. It was really expensive then, and all the options and the Black Bolts pulse waving for 4 entire teams, and the other things with the Wolverines and the Sinestros. Like yeah, you could go back and listen to all my videos, and I could tell you all the latest nukes and cool tricks that were there. A lot of that stuff was like, all right, are you bored of your current stuff? Here's what you can go do. It's not like, hey man, here's the revolving menagerie of BS. Here we go. Let's get these counters going. Okay. And so, I mean, there are some realistic thoughts that I think WizKids really needs to think about going forward when they release objects like this. Now, I do want to make it clear, and I want to make this 100% clear. I believe objects like the gems and the Infinity Gauntlet and the Cosmic Cube and all the rest of the stuff they're releasing in the set is better in a set than WKO pricing. Okay? I was talking online to this cat named David, and I was playing him in Roll20, and I was like, yo, man, so your team can be good. All you need is exo specs and some stuff like this. And he's like, look, I just started playing 3 months ago. And I'm like, when did you get exo specs? He's like, nah, that was the WKO before I started. And then it just sort of went over me like, oh. And then he said something worse than that. He said he lived in Canada. And I was like, oh, gosh, I feel for you, man. And it's not that living in Canada is bad, but if you live outside the United States, you know how much more like jacked up the price of goods are. Okay? Like no politics shade throwing out there, right now. Okay, just realistically, it has never been cheap for people to live outside the United States to get clicks. So it's one of those, like, if the people in the United States playing clicks get a cold, everybody else in the world playing clicks has pneumonia and is fighting off, like, type 2 diabetes, and while at the same time, the smallpox plague is encroaching upon their village. Like, that's pretty much what you're dealing with. So I think from an accessibility standpoint, as long as these objects are great and you can get them in the actual, boosters and the actual set, they're more accessible. They allow people to compete. I think that's great. So anyway, I see what WizKids is doing. They want to open up the playing field. They want to have you have an incentive to buy. They want you to play those teams that you weren't going to be playing before. And feel like they're competent because one or two missing mechanics that normally would stop you from playing it, you could just tack on some points and add in those mechanics in exchange for tempo. I see where it is going. I think that it's a good thing overall. I think this allows casuals to have more fun and make sounder teams. So when casuals are like, oh, I got thrashed because, this thing just sucks. I'm like, no, man, it's because you didn't have a freaking time gem. You didn't have prob, Billy. You didn't have prob. Okay, so anyway, I'm coming down just a little bit. So I like the idea that I can put these objects on my team and it will help. What I don't like is the ramifications of this 6 months, a year from now, that a good deal of players are going to be blocked out the game. It happened during War of Light. It happened for the Infinity Gauntlet for a brief period, and then lo and behold, how gangbusters stupid the Bat Belt was. That was dumb. And even then, the Bat Belt was like king for a brief period, and folks were pissed off because they couldn't get everything with that. I would respect WizKids if they, let's just say, a month from now, or not month from, but let's just say a year from now, they release Ultimate Weapons Pack, and an Ultimate Weapons Pack would cost $50, and it wouldn't take up that much space, and it would display the Infinity Gauntlets, one Infinity Gauntlet at least, all of the gems, the Cosmic Cube, and it's $50. I would respect that because at least it would give a new player a chance. It would give them a chance, or at least release. You could release like once per year a object packed equivalent to what Magic does with like a Pro Dex. Like, these are the top 5 objects that are released. They have the same set number as the figures that were released. They're going to be tournament legal for at least another year. These objects are now economically accessible, and it creates a new floor for these objects, and creates it so that new players aren't royally screwed. And that's really the problem. I love everything that's going on, except for the inevitable reality that I know that newer players in the future will be screwed. And unless, and here's the quotes, they make something more broken. And then that's when we have a problem. I mean, that's when we have a bigger problem. All right, so let's go into some Malcolm Rush questions. Okay, so we got some cool stuff. I gotta like scroll up here. He shows me some stuff with the Iron Man, and he asked me. Let's actually, I need to start from the beginning. He just starts off. Here's the first one. No question. Just wanted to tell you how stupid WizKids are. Went to a local comic book store for free comic book day. I bought 500 yen worth of comic books. And with the 50 free comic books, they include a heroclix. Now, here's the problem. That comic book store doesn't sell heroclix. So everyone who went to the store had no clue what was in their bag. I asked the store if they could order some heroclix since I got one free for a free comic book day. They are also clueless what was a heroclix. That is why WizKids is stupid. For marketing, they got 0, maybe 1. Next time, WizKids needs to send free product. And they also need to make it easy for the store to order some heroclix to sell to customers. What do you think? If you want to tell this on your podcast, you can. And he shows me the freaking Iron Man, Steampunk Iron Man, which I didn't get one because I didn't do free comic book day like an idiot. I was at home. I don't really have an excuse. So, yeah, I could probably go to the comic book store and find out if they have some left. But anyway, so he says some questions. Please give the best and worst and your favorite of these different kinds of poses and heroclix. The superhero landing pose, I could deal with it. They don't really use that too much. The sitting down pose, I like some Thrones. I like some literally Games of Thrones. You get Black Panther and Daredevil sitting down next to Highfather. Yeah, it works. With what's that King Tut? That's another one. Riding something pose. Depends. Some of the riding things have been pretty cool. So yeah, I like those. Standing around pose. Yeah, I'm not. It's the waiting for the bus pose. I give that a no. Flying pose depends if you have cape and if they give you Jolly Rancher or not. Hovering pose. Some of them have been good. The Civil War OP, Doctor Strange. I like that one. Tellus. Was it Tellus? Or no, it's not Tellus. What's that little gnome-looking dude? That was Legion of Superheroes. I don't know. I liked him too. I liked his sculpt. Using a weapon pose. I don't like the brandishing weapon. I want them to be firing their gun. If they're, I want them swiping or firing. I don't want them standing there like they're waiting to shoot something. You know, with the freaking barrel in the gun pointed up while they're looking somewhere else. I don't want that. That's unprofessional. Using their powers pose depends on the powers. How intricate it gets. That could be great. Action pose. Elaborate. Fighting pose. Now, if they're in like katas or something, then those look cool. Do you have any other heroclix poses you like that I didn't mention? surfing poses. Those are pretty good. I think some of the things they're doing with the WWE are pretty good. I want Jolly Rancher Fire Breath. I like that. Or Vomiting Energy. Those are great. That's why I like Green Lanterns or Lanterns. All right. That's it. That's it for today's show. I'd like to thank you all for listening. So let's do the typical outro stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at StartOverPod. It came from outer space and told me there is a small beeping noise that you hear in the back of your head. That sound is being projected from star 2295 in the Gamma Quadrant, fifth star circling planet. Blah, blah, blah. All right, they have advanced technology. They've been trying to talk to us for years, but they don't know. We don't know their code, and they always seem to get somebody that doesn't understand their signal. So next time you hear that beeping in the back of your head, it's interdimensional aliens talking to you. If you can decipher it, let them know to listen to Starting Over Podcast on YouTube. There we go. All right. You can follow me on YouTube. Follow me on YouTube is great because YouTube does not like YouTubers. And you can find out when a new show is up. And randomly, I tweet things. And when I mean randomly, like, I haven't been to the salsa club because of the car accident. So the one place that I was tweeting, using my Twitter to tweet things at the DJ, I haven't been able to do that in a long while. So, yeah. You can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. If you wish to opine, keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. Let me know what you think of these previews so far. How much money is WizKids going to get out of you? I got to be honest, they're getting me to buy blind, which they haven't got me to say that word in years. It's like you find the girl that's just like she's hot and she knows how to cook, and her parents suck, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You know, it's like 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So yeah. Anyway, you can donate to the show. Go over to startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. There is a donate button. Everything that you donate goes to make the show better. Yeah. And so that's it. Getting ready for nationals. Trying to figure out teams. I got one preliminary that I have. And trying to just think of other cool stuff. So I'd like to thank you all for listening. It's been a very, very, very fun show. I've had fun. I hope you've had fun. And remember, we all have to start over